Okay, so in response to, I had written something yesterday on your Facebook, your YouTube video. I'm a little unclear as to exactly what Kriya Yoga is. Is it the individual exercises? Is it the entire technique? When you say I'm doing my Kriya now, what do you mean?
Perfect. So it's the lineage that I carry is the Kriya Yoga lineage from Lahiri Mashaya. It was passed down to Panchanan Bhattacharya ji, who was his prodigy. And so there is some information out there that Lahiri Mashaya did not write. That's not completely accurate. He gave his writings to Panchanan Bhattacharya ji, and Panchanan did a bunch of writing for him under his direction. So all of that, so that Panchanan was his prodigy, and so it's a wonderful lineage. And during my many Kriya Yoga investigations, I kept hearing that the Panchanan Bhattacharya lineage had held the Kriya the most purely and the most completely. And I found that to be very, very true. So I started studying with Ashok Singh, and he taught me the original Kriya. And so it's a process. It's kind of like neurolinguistic programming. It's a bag of tricks, but specifically when people say I'm practicing my Kriya, they're talking about the Kriya pranayama. And when I say I'm practicing my Kriya, I'm practicing the original Om Japa Kriya. So that involves breathing, and it involves Om Japa at the same time. And so I'm teaching kind of on multiple tiers simultaneously when I teach, when I talk to all of you. And so some people are just on my YouTube and they've just met me. And then some people are practicing heart rate variability resonance. And that's actually, so if this is the Kriya, that's actually part of the Kriya. And that's something that many lineages are not conscious of. And I'm trying to bring awareness to that. So HRV resonance is in the Kriya. The Kriya breath is a long breath, and it will create heart rate variability resonance. And if you're practicing from a lineage which has the original Kriya, which has not been altered, then it will also have Om Japa in it, Om Japa in the chakras. And now sometimes, so what I offer is that you come and you study with me and you start the heart rate variability resonance. Maybe you do a little Om Japa in the chakras and you go, oh, this is great. Oh my God, it actually works. And then you go, hey, Forrest, what is this Kriya Yoga? And then if you would like, I can start to teach you the Kriya Yoga. And we do that one-on-one. And I try to keep the original, I want to keep the original mandate, which is that I actually meet you in person. But my guru said it's okay to begin over the phone, especially because of all the lockdowns that we had a few years ago. So he said, it's okay to start on the phone as long as they promise to meet you in person eventually. And I'm very easy and flexible. I don't care how long that takes at all. It can take years and years, and I'm totally happy to begin teaching you the Kriya over the phone. So and it actually works quite well. So I begin teaching you over the phone, and then we meet in person later. And by that time, you've got a host of new questions, and maybe you're even ready for the second Kriya. And so it works wonderfully. It's not, for some, it's not necessary that they have it. Not everybody wants it. Not everybody has to have it. So don't think that, oh, I'm missing out because I don't have it. And, I don't really particularly have interest in that. I just want to learn meditation from you in a more general way. And for some people, that's perfect. And they will have profound experiences because I'm teaching you all of the guts of how meditation actually works. And so you start putting those pieces together, and it works. It works beautifully and wonderfully. And so that's actually what. So then the Kriya yogis that come to me that have been working with other lineages, perhaps, they start understanding how what they've been attempting to do, how it's meant to work, and they start working it, and it actually works. So I have everybody. So I have Kriya yogis from different lineages that don't take Kriya from me. I have people. I had a guy that called me up. He's like, I want to do a call with you. He did a call. He did one call with me, and he was doing a Rosicrucian esoteric path, and he'd gone quite deep with it. He was very, very pure hearted, and he was going quite deep with it. But it was just a Rosicrucian esoteric path that he was on, and he goes at the end of the call. He goes, "What do you think I should do next?" And I'm like, "Well, I think you should get the Big Bliss. I really think that you should watch that." So he watched it, and he came back and he goes, "I don't know what just happened, but I just, I did what you said, and I just, okay, so I'm going to roll up to here, and then I'm going to roll up to here." And he did a roll up right after watching the Big Bliss. Didn't take any other training from me, no Kriya Yoga. He goes, I don't know what this is, but I just kind of expanded into everything without a body. I'm like, you just had a Samadhi, and all you did was the Big Bliss. Oh my, it totally blew my mind. I didn't think that was possible. And he totally did it. And he didn't even know what it was. He's not trying to impress me or anything. He's like, what is this experience? I don't know what this is. So I have everybody, and I love all of it. I just adore everybody that gives these things a try. It's just, so, everybody, yeah, it's just, but you guys, you're here, and, you're interested so much that you actually joined up on Patreon. And that's a kind of level of sincerity that I'm gonna weep just thinking about it. So I love it. So all of you, I love you guys. I want you to know that. And how do I sign up for Kriya Yoga initiation? You just say, Forrest, I want to do the Kriya Yoga. I got a heart there. Thank you. And so that's all you do. You just say, I want to take the Kriya Yoga with you. And I ask my Kriya students to watch, and many of you have already done it, the Tranquil Breath training and the Big Bliss training. Now, let me tell you why. The Tranquil Breath, I want you to know what the Tranquil Breath is. It doesn't mean that you have to have it right now. A lot of you do. You're like, you call me and you go, "Oh, I already have the Tranquil Breath." And I'm like, oh my God, it's so big. And then the other thing that I want you, and when you have a little bit of the Tranquil Breath, you have a little bit of the freeze response, guaranteed, because they kind of go hand in hand. And if you have a little bit of the freeze response, you have a little bit of the Tranquil Breath. They go hand in hand. So just keep that in mind. So I want you to be able to recognize what is the Tranquil Breath. And then the Big Bliss, there's a lot in there. But the really, really big kind of hidden thing is that I want you to be able to recognize the roll-up of consciousness. And that might not sound like a really big thing, but it's actually huge. And I wanted to say this to you. If you can recognize, so back to what you were asking. I like everybody to watch those first two trainings before you come to see me for Kriya Yoga. And some people think, well, I have to master that. No, not at all. In fact, that can be, years. It can take years. Some people it takes weeks and months, but for some it takes a little bit longer, and that's okay. So you don't have to master that before you get the Kriya. In fact, the Kriya is the process of learning to master that. But that's why I want you to know. I want you to be able to know what those two things are, and it doesn't mean you have to totally get it, right? Because sometimes it takes a little time, especially with something as subtle as the roll-up of consciousness. In fact, I've got a quote I want to give you. Somebody just sent to me. But just so you know, in my mind, if you can recognize the Tranquil Breath, the freeze response, the roll-up of consciousness, and expansion, if you know what those are, you are golden. You're basically a master in my mind. If you can, you're touching on mastery, just to be able to recognize what those are, because it's such a big deal. So the Kriya Pranayama, it's a breath, and it's Om Japa, and it has heart rate variability in it. All right. It has a couple other things. It has sitting very still inside of it, right? And so it's kind of a stacked technology. So when we're referring to Kriya Yoga, it's really about that one technique, that pranayama that we're doing. And, but it's also about the whole kind of routine and this premise that we're heading into the non-dual state. That's Kriya Yoga. So there's both a Kriya Yoga, which is the whole path, right? It's kind of like it's very much like the 8 steps of yoga, or the 6 steps, Patanjali's 8 steps, right? So it's yama niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, right? So it's those 8 steps, and it's a very practical, instead of just, okay, there's 8 steps, it's a very practical application of that process. So that's the whole path, and then very specifically the pranayama, that is the kriya. And it's very interesting. The great, is it one great or two? The great-grandson of Lahiri Mahashaya was Banmali, and he said that kriya was a name that the students gave to it, that Lahiri Mahashaya would actually refer to it as sahaja. He would very often refer to it as sahaja yoga, natural yoga. And I love that word, don't you? Sahaja, the natural, pure, original state, that we're trying to get back to that which is basically talking about the non-dual state. And then, but he would say to his students, he would say, go home and do your homework. And when he said that, he would say, go home and do your kriya, right? And so this work, this idea of doing work at home, which is kriya, came up a lot. And I was talking about, and I wanted to read this to you. Somebody asked me, he says, somebody asked me, and I don't want to mention the name because I didn't ask for permission. He's having energy go up. He said, is this bliss, right? So he's doing his kriya, and he's feeling like a magnified feeling of what happens when I do the cute baby meditation. Sometimes I'll be oming into my lower chakras, and I have this feeling in the heart. And then he stops, and he just feels it. Now, what is that? He's oming into the lower chakras, and then all of a sudden his heart lights up. That's the roll-up of consciousness. He's having energy and consciousness roll up into his heart and just open up. So he's oming down here, and this gets free. The projections that are projected down here, they are disengaging, and the consciousness and energy comes up into his heart, and his heart just kind of opens up, right? And it can be very blissful, it can be very subtle, it can be very calm, but it's kind of your consciousness feels as if it's gotten a little bit bigger. We're a little bit beyond our worries, right? That's a roll-up. So I just wanted to share that because it was so perfect. Roll-up of consciousness. So does that help? Does that answer your question, Linda?
That was fantastic. It was perfect, and I'm ready to get going with you.
Oh, right. I love it. Yeah, and anybody here, if you watch those first 2 trainings and you want to start learning the Kriya Yoga, just let me know. And I'll have a big list of YouTube videos for you to review, and that just makes our conversation on the phone really easy. And that's basically it. And then someday you can meet me in person, and we'll do the in-person initiation. Oh, okay. So Geoffrey, you asked me, this is kind of related. Do you still feel a connection with Yogananda, or did you give that up completely when Sri Ashok initiated you? And that's a great question. when I found out that Yogananda had drastically altered the Kriya, it was kind of that and a few other things. It was kind of heartbreaking. And, but then, and I kind of, so I'd never met Yogananda in person, of course. And then I was meeting with Ashok and learning the original Kriya. And it was just such a wonderful experience of actually asking questions and getting direction. And there were so many points where I was off and the whole world was off and he was correcting me. And it was so wonderful to be on the right track. And I think, and then and then eventually I started teaching. And then one day, one of my students asked me a question, and the perfect answer was a quote from Yogananda. And I think ever since that moment, Yogananda has turned into a kind of like one of your favorite uncle that tells great stories, and you just love your your great uncle and his stories. But the direction that Ashok gave me was so practical. And it was lining up, when you have kind of a download experience and you get like a little clue from the higher self, and then you're walking through. So this is what would happen to me. I would get like a download. I would get a clue from the higher self, and then I'd be walking through my life. And then somebody would say something as I was studying Kriya Yoga. And it was actually Priscilla Walker. She was doing an interview. This is an example. She was doing an interview, and out of nowhere, she goes, Kriya Yoga is medulla centric. And every hair on my body stood up. And I was, electrified. I mean, she's just talking and she says that, and my whole body lit up. And it's a response that can happen because you're touching on the right brain. The right brain, you get some of that kind of charge from the right brain, from the higher self. And it just electrified me. And it's like, okay, so I should be paying attention to this moment. This is important. And later I actually got Priscilla Walker on the phone and we became good friends. And I asked her about that, and she barely remembered it. She barely remembered saying it, but she's like, oh, well, it must have been important for you. So it was just the perfect circumstances. And then I was studying with Ashok, and he kept mentioning the medulla. And then I went back to give you an idea, all the research that I was doing. I went back and I looked at all of the old lessons that Yogananda had printed. And I found one version, because there's multiple versions of those lessons. And I found one version which was very, very early. And on one page, the medulla was mentioned about 20 I mean, I'm exaggerating. I'm going to say 20, but it was less than that. It was like 9 or 10 times in a few paragraphs. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the right track. I'm coming back to the correct place. And it was a great confirmation. So I just had confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that the direction that Ashokji was leading me in was really, really good. So that kind of related. I wanted to share that. Okay. So we had a great question. I think I saved them on my phone so I can read them. Kevin, you had a question, which is here on right with this. When praying, must it be an image of the higher self, or can we simply pray to the Dharma Mega? And this is such a great question, because most people don't think about one or the other, right? And so we have when we're doing Kriya Yoga, which we started talking about, right, we're actually headed towards the non-dual. So a lot of lineages will begin with a prayer to the non-dual, to the infinite God, to the cosmic Lord, right? And that will set them on the pathway towards the non-dual state. And so it's like we're thinking about it, we're worshiping it, and then we start to go into it. That's the idea with the Kriya Yoga. But when we're praying and we want an answer, that answer is taking place usually with the left brain, with the left amygdala of bliss, right? And so we're connecting to that. That's a dualistic process. So if you're going to do a dualistic process like prayer and you want an answer, then it's helpful if you use an Ishta. And so if you use like Divine Mother, and it's like, okay, I can't pick one, Forrest. I can't pick Krishna or Buddha or, anybody. I don't know who to pick. And it's too much of a question. It's like coming into the grocery store and there's just too many choices of cereal. It's just like so many choices. It's overwhelming me, right? And so I can't pick. We'll pick a guardian angel. That's simple and easy, right? And so, but when you have that Ishta in mind, and it's very important. I don't see this problem with you guys, but I encounter it occasionally on YouTube. When you're connecting to an Ishta, in Jungian terms, you are connecting to an archetype. And when you connect to an archetype, you want to connect to the highest of the high. And so a guardian angel is very fitting for that. It's like I'm connecting to a high angel. And so you want to have that. So now you are directing yourself correctly in the correct direction towards the highest of the high archetype for you. And that will lead you to always have a very, very good experience. And you will bystep some of your projections that might come up in lower archetypes, right? That's like a huge subject. I could do a whole training just on that. But it's in a nutshell, that is the process. We want to connect to the highest of the high, like a guardian angel, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father. The Kahuna would describe the higher self as the always trustworthy parental figure. Isn't that perfect? Always trustworthy parental figure. Somebody that's really, really looking out for us, looking over us. And it's really, really good to keep that in mind when we're connecting to the higher self, because we want to direct ourselves in the correct direction. And that will get you the very best answers. Because you're dealing not only with your higher self, you're also dealing with your subconscious. And you don't want a bunch of your negative projections projecting onto the higher self, because that will interrupt the message. So to avoid that, which will happen to people. In fact, there's an example on my last YouTube video. There's a gentleman that wrote something on my last video, and he's in that process where something from down here is projecting onto the higher self and the message is getting messed up. So he's not connecting to the highest of the high, right? So that's why you want that highest of the high, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, guardian angel, totally trustworthy parental figure that will lead us in the right direction, and we'll have just amazing answers. So wonderful question. So I got that one. And so Nilesh, am I saying your name correctly? Nilesh?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Namaste.
Namaste. When I was young, I used to have many questions about God. Why did he create this world? Why does even God exist? I would I would have questions for everything. Like, why is there sun, water? These are great questions. Why does no books answered, but I got clues. And when a person reaches Samadhi, all these answers become known to the yogi. Is this true? People who have Samadhi, do you have such questions, and are they intuitively known the answer to all of this? And for the past 15 years, I've begun to understand these questions are all on the mental level. Samadhi state is something where you go beyond this mental level, and hence these questions do not arise. Is this so? What about when someone descends from Samadhi? Don't these questions come back to them? This is a really wonderful, wonderful question on the process of really great. I love it. So what you're describing is a download experience. So what will happen is you will go into the higher self. You'll go into a non-dual experience. So in that, and if you want to check your experience, did I have a physical body? No. Did I have an astral form? No. Was I aware of my breathing? No. Okay, so that means you're in a non-dual experience. You are in a samadhi at that point. And it can be nothing. It can be space. A lot of people read the autobiography of a yogi and they think, oh, it's got to be exactly like that. No. That's not true. When those three things are gone, it is a samadhi. And it can be different and different and different and different. It can be similar, but it can also be different. It could be expansive, a union with expansive love. And there's a difference between the Savikalpa and the Nirvikalpa. So in the Savikalpa, that's the beginning samadhi, you can still reason and recollection. We think we're going to get rid of our mind, right? But then in the first samadhi, we still have reasoning and recollection. That means you can be in samadhi and go, what is this? Oh my, and it's not like a normal thought. Your thoughts are the resolution is high resolution. Like Tom was saying, it's HD, perfect description. There's a clarity that comes with the higher self, a deep clarity that you feel. It's like you're just really on. You've passed through the fuzzy patch of the subconscious, and now everything is HD. It's really amazing, but you can still have thoughts, reasoning and recollection. It's like, I remember that this is the samadhi. It's not like you're chatting away, but there are some thoughts that might come to you in the first samadhi, even without a body. And then you go into the nirvikalpa, and there's no reasoning and there's no recollection. You are just it. And it can seem like a vision. It's like I'm having a vision, but yet it's a completely intuitive experience. All right. So it's, okay. So your question, that is non-dual. So there's not a lot of room for a conversation. It's just, you are the whole, right? And then you come out. And as you come out, you're bringing some of that, for lack of a better term, you're bringing that spirit and that energy with you, right? And so you come back and you've had a taste of what you actually are. It's like, we took away the body, we took away the past, we took away the subconscious, we took away your worries, we took away your story, we took away everything. And you said, what am I? And you say, I was just this pure consciousness, right? This conscious awareness. And you go, that is the Purusha, that is the soul, that is what I actually am. And that process of coming back, it begins to kind of, it's kind of the you know, when you get a song and it's just stuck in your head and you can't get rid of it, it kind of eats at you. You know, you walk around your life and you have worries. But you also have this non-dual experience. And so it's like, can I really take all of these worries so seriously? Can I do that? And it might not. So you might fall into a pit. You might fall. It's like that story where the guy, you know, he walks up to the pit, falls in. Next day, walks up to the pit. He goes, oh my God, there's a pit. I remember there's a pit. He falls in. Right? Next day, he walks up to the pit. He says, I should not go into that pit. He falls in. Next day, he goes, oh, there's a pit. And he walks back and he walks around, right? That's kind of how life is, right? We learn very slowly. So if you fall into the pit of worry, it's okay, even after a samadhi. But you have this little kind of eating thing at you. Oh my God, here I am. I'm totally attached in this moment. I'm worried, I'm depressed, whatever it is. But I've had this samadhi and everything disappeared. All of this is not as real as I thought it was. I think one of the very best quotes from Yogananda, he was trying to describe this process. He said, everything that you thought was real becomes unreal, more and more gradually unreal, and everything that you thought was unreal, like I didn't know if God was real. I didn't know if the non-dual state was real. I didn't know if the oversoul was real. That becomes more and more real. So you're going like this, right? And it's a really strange thing because, I thought this was real. It's not so real. And I thought this was unreal, and it's more real than this is real. That just, that continuously blows your mind. And so there's kind of this process going on in the left brain. And do you remember those computers? We had a computer, and you defrag your computer, and it would show all these little these pixels, right? And there were all these different colors, and then slowly it would eat through, and it would all become one solid color. And that's how you knew, oh, my computer's in line. It's defragged. That's what's happening to the left brain. And so it can be really subtle. It can be really on a continual basis. It can take years and years and years, but that is happening. And then you'll also have downloads, because now there's a conversation. You're learning to access the higher self, and you access it more and more often. Not only in the non-dual state, but you'll be walking around and a download will hit you, right? I was living in Vancouver, Washington, and I started getting so many downloads. It was a period where I was just, that reformatting was happening so often and so strongly that it started to freak me out. Like it's I started walking around like, what is real? Can I trust anything? Is anything real? Can I it kind of started to freak me out. It was wonderful. It was mind-blowing. I loved it. And at the same time, it was like, what is happening to me? And so that's that process. And it's so that the download is really a conversation between, Ian McGilchrist says, the master and the emissary, the higher self and the conscious mind, right? God and you. There's this conversation which is going on. And that conversation is reformatting your brain. And so you'll get a download of understanding, of insight into God knows what. It could be anything that you're interested in or anything in your life that you're wondering about. And it will blow your mind. And that's a download. And so it's not that we go into Samadhi and it's like, okay, I know everything. No. It's a very long conversation between you and God. And so when you read all of the scriptures, like the Bible, it's like Jesus was learning, right? Okay, go to Arjuna. Arjuna was learning. Krishna, give me the big experience, right? He gets the big experience. Oh, take it away. It's too much. I can't handle it, right? That's learning. So it's this, yeah. It's great, right? Oh, thank you. So it's this conversation which is going on and on and on. And it's mysterious and beautiful, and you can't fully map it. That's why I say we can know the pathway. There's these archetypes that we're going to pass through, but how it unfolds for you, we can't know. We can't say it. We don't know. Absolutely impossible, because what's inside of you? What's God want to tell you today? How's that going to unfold? We don't know. It's this just gorgeous thing that's unfolding in your life. And there's this quote from the Buddha. Something about the battle and the path, that he who has walked that path, no one can walk that path again. And so that's why we can learn from people, we can emulate people, but the actual path, that's yours because of that process, because of how will that unfold. It's like getting into meditation. I try to make it so easy, and yet even with the way that I teach, it can be difficult for people, because they go to my YouTube. It's like, there's 300 videos here. Where do I start? But that's kind of how it goes. It's like, well, where will you start? Will you start with the Om Japa? Will you start with the Hakala? Will you start with the heart rate variability resonance? Will you want to jump straight into Kriya? Like, so I have a program, right? But where will you begin, and how will you begin to get into this, and how will that unfold? We don't know, and that's kind of the individuality and the beauty of it. So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Did it make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful question. Beautiful question, by the way. And, okay, so we did that. And now, Scott. Scott, I don't think Scott is here, but Scott loves this question. Scott's asked this question to me numerous times. Can you talk about always remembering God and giving up every action to God? What is actually going on? It seems this practice is foundational in the yoga of the Gita, yet I don't know what practices this relates to in your system. I believe Lahiri Baba suggests always being at the Atman, or always remaining in the Kutastha in his Gita. What does it mean to always be in the Atman? What level experience indicates being in the Atman? Well, that's a huge riddle, isn't it? So really, this is about how can I make the Kriya system work as easily as possible? What can I do during my day to make the Kriya system work as fast as possible? And that's what the Gita and what Lahiri Baba is pointing at. Like, what practices are going to speed this up and make it easy for me in learning Kriya, in getting into the non-dual state? So the question that you're asking, what is it to be in the Atman? The final answer is actually the Samadhi. So the Samadhi is actually teaching you that. And you can have the Samadhi and walk out and you still don't know, but you go back again and again and again and you go, oh, wow. Like that quote that I gave on the last video from Osho. All of this is unreal. All of this is unreliable. Have you noticed that? Everything in our life is unreliable. But silence is completely reliable. The higher self is completely reliable. And the more we lean on that, the easier life gets. Oh, there's this beautiful quote from, Leonard Cohen, who's a Buddhist, and he said, until you become the ocean, you'll get seasick every day, right? Isn't that just, I saw that quote and I about wept. It was so beautiful. So, that's what we're learning in Samadhi. We are I saw you raised a hand. That's what we're learning in the Samadhi. We're actually learning what is the Atman. And then because of the Samadhi process, you walk around and you go, this is not real. What I experienced, that is real. Right? And you start walking around like that. And that completely changes your mind about everything. So the Gita and Lahiri Baba are saying, well, you can start that right now. You can start to question if this is real and say what is actually real, and point yourself towards that over and over again. And that will help the process. And it's a process of expansion. So really it's anything. It could be Hakala, it could be cute baby, it could be practicing the presence. For years and years, there was another question, what do you do to stay centered? For years and years, I was practicing the presence of Divine Mother, and I would feel like Divine Mother is on my shoulder, right, looking over me, and that continuous feeling of the divine is hovering over me and watching my life. It begins to connect you more and more easily to the divine. So you bring the divine into everything. You don't just forget about it and walk around your day. You're bringing the divine into everything that you do, and it's completely transformative. But the real thing that the Gita is talking about, the Gita is always pointing you towards the non-dual. And so whenever they say karma, they're talking about Kriya Yoga, right? Every time you see in the Gita where it says karma yoga, that is Kriya Yoga. Or the Kriya Yoga can interpret all of that as doing a technique to get into a deep state. And whenever they say bhakti, very often they mean union. They mean you are getting into a union state with the divine. So those are some tricks to begin to read the Gita on a deeper level in light of Kriya Yoga. But that's what the process that is happening is that you are getting expanded. So, and like I was telling, somebody was asking for coaching, and they said, what is the biggest thing that I can really do for, what do I need to hear right now? What's my next thing? Give me something to point myself to. And I said, whenever you're walking through your daily life and you find that you're getting stuck in a box, and that box is too small and it's depressing and it's eating you up, whatever it is, right? Whether it's the political situation, the earth is going to hell in a handbasket, people are dying, whatever that small little box is, remember that it's only a box created by the left brain. And if you will get into a more expansive state, you will find your way out of that. And that's what the Gita is asking you. That's what Lahiri Baba is asking you. Watch out for those tiny little scrunched down places and try and expand. So when you bring the divine and you say, I'm not acting, the divine is acting through me. That's an expansive process. And you're touching on the higher self. You're touching on a little bit of the right brain. But you could also do bliss. But they're really talking about the right brain when they talk about this walking through your life and God is acting through me. Thinking that puts you in a more expansive state. And so you're practicing expansion. And you're practicing expansion. And then you go into meditation. You set the table of your deepest state. And then you go into feeling expansion. And it's easier because you've been practicing it all day. So that's really the process that's talking about, expansion. And the Gita, the main theme of the Gita is expansion. And it might not be readily apparent, but it is. It is. I'll explain more and more about that, that the Gita is really all about expansion. It's all about the non-dual state. So Rahul, you asked about the Atman, and you said, I would be thankful if you could clarify about the Atman consciousness Samadhi state. That's really it. That's what we were talking about that, weren't we? So that is the process of Samadhi. The Samadhi is the question. The question is, what am I really? And you're going into the Samadhi so that you know, oh, that's what I am. And at first it's just an experience, and then bit by bit it chews away at your brain. That reformatting happens, that defragging of the conscious mind. And you go, oh, this is what I really am. I am this. And that incompletion is yoga. That the completion of that whole process, when you are more and more identified with the oversoul rather than this little vehicle, right? That the completion of that is the Dharma Mega completion. That you've completed yoga once you've completed that whole process. And that's also the process of Sahaja Yoga. So Rahul, you had a hand up. Are you still here? Sometimes people get disconnected. I'm sorry I took too long, Rahul. Let me go over here and answer some questions here. Rahul, there you are. Did you have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. You have to click on the little thing that shows the audio, the microphone, and then you can talk. Or you can type. I'll look for your question on the right over here. Okay, so we answered about Kriya Yoga. Amber says, one question I have is to help me better understand sense reversal. Sometimes, let's say, someone loses all sensations of the body and there is only pure consciousness and bliss everywhere, and everything and yet the eyes are open and sounds can be heard, except it isn't sound but consciousness. Does that still count as sense reversal? Yes, it does. It's a partial absorption. And then when it... Go ahead.
Sorry, the second message right below clarifies what I mean. Like the senses disappear.
Right.
Quote unquote.
So that when you're in any of that, when any of the senses begin to dim out. So the thing that I always thought, and it's kind of amazing. I was thinking about this the other day and remembering I was in the ashram and I was with a group of monks, and somebody just, we were doing a question and answers kind of like this, except the older monks didn't have the answers that many were looking for. And one of the young men blurted out, I worked with him every day. He was a good friend. He blurted out, he goes, we're just going to be looking for sense withdrawal for the rest of our lives. And here you all are experiencing it. He was really frustrated. He couldn't get the answers. And you guys know exactly what it is. It's the freeze response. So as you enter into the freeze response, see, we always thought from the descriptions from Patanjali, we always thought that it was going to be like a big switch. You just switch it down and all the senses are gone. But that's not how it works at all. It's a dimmer switch. And so, the light in the kitchen, and you dim the light, and it goes down, 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 down. And that's how the sensations of your body work in the freeze response. The body, like somebody just wrote to me and he said it's so cool. He said, the inside of my body became like creamed butter. I thought, oh, wow, isn't that cool? And then he said, and then it just opened up and I felt hollow inside. That is sense reversal. You're feeling inside of yourself. That happens because you're integrating with the subconscious. And the subconscious is allowing you, with the caudate nucleus, to feel deeply inside of the body. And the external world is dimming down. Sometimes we don't notice that dimming down until it gets really profound. So maybe part of the body will disappear, or part of the body will become numb. And I don't mean like a loss of circulation, the circulation comes back and the hand just feels like 1,000 pinpricks and it's not very nice. That's not the numb I'm talking about at all. It's just, I can't feel it like I usually do. That's the numbing down, and that's the sense withdrawal. And so the whole body will feel like that. You might have dislocation. So my head is over here. My body is over here. Some people tell me they stretch out, so my head is way up here. My body is way down here, right? That's a dislocation. Some of the processes of the left brain are getting interrupted by the freeze response. And so you go to sense the body, and it doesn't make sense like it used to. A lot of times, yogis will say the bottom half of their whole body is just gone, and they just feel this part. So this is also freeze response, maybe a little bit of roll up as well. But anytime you have any of that, that is the freeze response. That is the interiorization, the sense reversal.
So for a further clarification, for someone who will be like in Dharma Mega and they have that going on, is that more or less like a partial sense reversal kind of all the time?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. So they might sit on their couch and go into the freeze response and start feeling expanded, start feeling their oneness with everything while they're sitting on the couch. So that's very possible. That's that's part of the Sahaja Yoga. The Sahaja Samadhi, where you have your eyes open and you're still experiencing a union with everything around you. So yeah, all of that can start to mix. So it's not necessarily linear where it's like this and this and this and this. It kind of starts to mix a little bit. Very possible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. William, What is it when I am falling asleep with a certain posture on my side? I get a freeze response in my lower torso. I am completely relaxed and letting go of all tension all over the body. So only the lower body gets into a freeze.
Yes, or maybe it's more pronounced.
Uh-huh.
And the whole body is.
It could also be that you're having a roll-up at the same time, and so the lower body is disappearing completely, and you're having a roll-up of consciousness, and it will, because I know you're already having very deep states, and so you're just going into your most relaxed state as you're about to fall asleep, and so the consciousness clicks on and says, this is a great time to have an experience, and so let's just roll up into the heart and we'll freeze the lower body into nothingness. And so now you're rolled up and the lower body, so you might even have a full-on samadhi before you sleep. So the whole body might disappear and you expand and then you fall asleep, and so it starts happening more and more easily and frequently as you relax completely. Even if you're not going into a samadhi, a lot of people will tell me, I did my kriya, I did everything, and while they're doing it, they're very concentrated, right? And so they're using a little bit more of the left brain than necessarily they need. But it's hard to know because it's such a balancing act between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And then they go sit down on the couch and boom, they go into bliss. It's like, how did that happen? I was just sitting on the couch and I did an hour of my meditation. And then I came in and I sat down on the couch and boom, I go into bliss. How is this? Forrest, how is this? Well, when you sat down on the couch and you got ready to watch the movie, you completely let go and relaxed, and you weren't. And so it was just, in Aikido, we used to say the 1-inch syndrome, right? In your meditation, you were, you were 1 inch from that. You were right there on the edge of it. And then you sat down on the couch and boom, you relaxed that much more. And boom, you had a bliss. You had a whatever experience. And so it happens. I hear about it all the time. I love it. And multiple people have brought that up to me. And so you're experiencing something very similar when you're getting ready to sleep. You totally relax again, and boom, freeze response, roll up, lower body disappears. Beautiful. Helpful? Awesome.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Joffrey says, what is your experience with Hong Sa or Soham? My first experience with it when I controlled the breath was very good. And then I began to try. So then I went back and I reread the instructions, and they kept telling me, let go, let go, let go. Don't do any kind of control. So like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. And I went back and I started not controlling the breath. And of course, my breath rate was too high. And so I didn't have a good result like I did the very first time that I tried it. It took me years to understand. I had controlled the breath. I had dropped the breath rate down because I was controlling it, which put me into heart rate variability resonance. And that's what created an actually really profound experience the very first time that I tried it. Then later, I almost had a samadhi with it because I was in my room and I was so dead tired. And so I was practicing it day after day after day. And I kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. So some days I would really love it. It would be great. And then other times it wouldn't work. And I didn't know why. And it had to do with my breath rate and whether or not I was getting into heart rate variability resonance or not. And I didn't know that. I couldn't understand that for years and years. And then I was dead tired. And because I was dead tired, I started to let go, and I let go. There was so little conscious mind that I had actually sat down to practice Kriya, and I totally forgot to do my Kriya, and I started doing Hong Sa automatically, And it felt so good. I'm like, I'm not interrupting this. This is great. I don't know what's going on. Oh, what do I care? I'm so dead tired. I'm just here for 5 more minutes and then I'm going to fall. I'm going to pass out, man. And while I was doing that, I started, my breath went down to nothing. So I was in the tranquil breath, and I started, the whole room started to spin, which was the third knot. And so that's my experience with Hong Sa and Soham. It's a very helpful technique when you learn to control the breath. So I like to tell people, start out controlling the breath. Do that for 10 minutes. Make sure you're in heart rate variability resonance, then let go and just watch it. And it's really nice if you can take it to another level where you... So usually the instructions for Hong Sa is when the breath comes in, I say Hong. When the breath goes out, I say Sa mentally. Breath comes in, Hong. Breath goes out, Sa mentally, right? It's a wonderful technique. But you can take it a little deeper, and you can imagine that you are hearing the sound of your breath. You either hear it or you imagine you hear it, right? So the breath comes in, and the breath is saying Hong. Breath goes out. The breath is saying Sa. So I'm actually listening to the sound that my breath... So it's even more passive. I am not saying Hong mentally. The breath is saying it. And so now they call that... I think they call it japa no japa, right? You're doing the japa, but you're not actually doing the japa. The breath is doing the japa. So it's kind of beautiful. That's my experience with that. Raul says, we might have answered this already. Does Samadhi experience let me come out of life-death cycle? When does the individual soul merge with the universal consciousness? Well, when does it merge? In the Samadhi. When do you become free from the cycle of life and death? That is the end of yoga. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, great question, by the way. In the end of the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, they say at the moment of death, the yogi should put his mind on the Ajna chakra. Now that's really easy. That's kind of simple. It's like, okay, I'm dying, and then I'm going to put my mind on the Ajna chakra in the medulla. That's it? No. That's not the end of yoga. What they actually mean, because Lahiri Baba would have done that in a snap, right? And he was temporarily worried that he was not free from the cycle of life and death. He was worried about it. He wrote about it in his diaries. And then he stopped worrying about it. It's like, okay, that's taken care of, right? And so he finished all of yoga. And so it's not that you're just putting your mind on the Ajna chakra. What is the Ajna chakra? The actual process is expansion and being one with that. So what the Gita is actually describing is that you reach this point that you are completely identified with the Oversoul. So everything that you thought was real goes down to be not real, and your soul, which you weren't quite sure of, right? It was not reliable. You are merged with it. And you know I am that. And so at any moment, you just experience the Oversoul. You tap into the divine, you tap into that, and you feel your oneness with it. And you say, I am that. Beautiful example of that is written in the Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a story. And Babaji is asked a question by his sister. And she goes, Babaji, I see that you are planning to exit your body. As the story goes, right? And he says, yes, you have glimpsed my plan. And she goes, Deathless Master, why are you going to exit your body? And he says, what difference? Here's the part. What difference does it make if my consciousness, the fragment of my consciousness rests on the Om, or it is the wave of the Om? What does it matter, right? It's something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly the words, but he's saying, what does it matter if I have a body in this form and I'm completely connected with the Dharma Mega, or I am the Dharma Mega, I am the Oversoul? What does it matter? And she goes, sir, if it doesn't matter, stay. He's like, okay, God has given the wish through you, I will never die. That's the story. It's beautiful. And so that's the point. That's the end of yoga right there. Whether you believe the story or not, it doesn't matter. That is the perfect example of the end of yoga, where you don't care. It's like, what does it matter? Because I am the oversoul, right? I am identified with that so completely. And you can't, like, it's not something you can do with your mind, right? With your left brain. It's something that happens because you dive into it and you come out, and you dive into it and you come out, and you dive into it and you come out. And then you say, oh, the ocean is with me, right? And all, you're that swimmer that you've swum so much in the ocean. You kind of, and I've actually met and heard stories about yogis that will rock. So who was it? There was a monk, Premamoy, Brother Premamoy. When you talked, I didn't meet him, but they all told me stories that he would rock. So what was he rocking to? He was rocking to the Om. So he was hearing the Om, and he couldn't help but just rock while he was talking to you. So he would stand and just kind of rock like this, listening to the Om. Bhaktananda would do the same thing. And so, you go into the Samadhi, you come out, you go into the Samadhi, you come out, you feel the ocean is with you. You're identified with it more and more. And that's the end of yoga. So perfect question. And I'm going over. So, if anybody has to leave, it's totally understandable, okay? Thank you, Raul. Oh, loving the computer analogies. Thank you, Anish. Yeah, that's how I picture it, is that defragging of your computer. I used to do that because I always wanted my computer to be fast, right? So I would defrag the computer, and it was always so enjoyable to watch. It's like, it's like watching, what it's like watching the white blood cells in your body, and they eat like the bad stuff in your blood. It's like, oh my God, it's so enjoyable. I could watch it for an hour. It's just like, yes, defrag. So great. Pooja says, thanks, Kevin. How will you know if you are getting messages from the higher self? That's a really important question, because the higher self, so if you get an answer, like on my YouTube, somebody got an answer and it said, if you don't do this, I will never forgive you. Whoa, that's not the higher self talking to you, right? You've got to know that. You've got to know what is the higher. So the higher self, completely reliable parental figure. And maybe we don't have a perfect parent, but you can imagine having a perfect parent, right? Or you use a grandparent. Maybe you had a perfect grandparent that just loved you to death, right? And that's the higher self. So you've got to know that when you're attempting to communicate with the higher self. And so you're going into the purest part of your brain, which connects to the higher self, right? Like a radio station. And so the purest part. So the answer will be very high. It will be very pure. It will always lead you in the right direction. It might not give you the whole answer. So don't expect the whole answer, but it will always lead you in the right direction. There's inspiration in it, right? So I talk a lot about this on the third training, like how to recognize the higher self talking to you, right? It will be inspiring, usually. There's usually a feeling of bliss or inspiration that comes with it. Like it's an aha moment, right? When you get those aha moments, you go, whoa, right? And that's a little bit of the upliftment and the inspiration that comes with contacting the higher self. And it will...
Right. Great. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
I have one more question to ask.
Good.
The question is, if when you feel the energy body vibrating inside you, the whole body vibrating, what should you do at that moment?
Enjoy the ride. Let go, because you're actually exiting from the left brain. And so as you exit from the processes which are identified, you'll get that vibration. So you could say it's the Om vibration that you're feeling, but more so it is the left brain that you are exiting. and so everything's very shaky. So that's actually a sign that you're very, very deep and you're letting go of the left brain and you're about to have an absorption experience.
Okay, so you don't have to do anything. Just watch it.
It's like a roller coaster. What do you do on a roller coaster?
Nothing.
Nothing. You just let back, you kind of hold
Enjoy
onto the
the
harness
ride.
and just you just let go, right? It's like, okay, here we
Okay.
go. I don't know what's coming. Right? That's it. That's all you do. And
All right.
the higher self will surprise you. So there's a bit of a surprise when you speak. We're used to having dreams, so we're used to speaking with the subconscious. So the subconscious, it will either have a complete thought or a not so complete thought, but it won't really surprise us. It will be, you can have a dream and you'll go, that was weird, or that was interesting, but it's not really surprising. And then you'll have the higher self will touch you and you'll go, whoa, right? It'll give you some kind of answer or an insight. And there's knowing from the right brain. And so you will know something, you'll have an insight, and it will feel profound to you a little bit. And not necessarily, rock your world every single time, but enough that you go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So that's a really good sign that you are speaking with the higher self. Surprise.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, so let's go down the list more on this side, and then Forrest. As I'm listening during this meeting, I became aware that you're in the tranquil breath. Oh my goodness! Just with letting go and listening and with calmness, and that's perfect. That's the transformation of your body into the yoga body. So the first thing is heart rate variability resonance. And you'll be sitting on the couch and you're not trying, and oh my God, I'm in heart rate variability resonance. I'm not trying to do it, and it's just here. And then you'll be walking around and you'll notice somebody else's breath while they're talking to you, right? And they're like this, and your breath rate is low. And you're going, oh, I'm in heart rate variability resonance while I'm walking around. And then you'll be sitting on your couch watching a movie with your family or talking to a friend, and you'll just notice, oh my God, my breath rate is so low. I'm in one of the stages of the tranquil breath. And that's what you just did. Maricia. That's what you just did. Beautiful. Raul says, I'm unable to unmute. Don't worry. You didn't interrupt anybody. It was perfect. Rajesh, maybe post your question comment here. Yes. Oh, great. You were helping. Thank you. Chitan says, I'm curious to know your take on our true nature. No self, Buddhism, or Satchitananda, Purusha, yoga. They're actually talking about the same thing. So the Buddhism is concentrating on the negative side. It's like, you're not this. So the yogis, they say neti neti, right? Not this, not that, not this, not that. I'm not this. All of this, which I thought was real, is going down. All of this is coming up, which I know, right? You have to go. Bye. Thanks, William. And so they're concentrating on the not this, not that portion. And the Satchitananda is concentrating what is the positive aspect of all of this. I am only consciousness. So I'm not a self. I am a consciousness that resides in this vehicle, right? I am not a personality. I am a consciousness. And that becomes more and more refined. And the Satchitananda, so they're actually the same. So I hope that makes, I'm saying very quickly and very easily, but they're the same. They're absolutely the same. So one is concentrating on the negative aspect and one is concentrating on the positive aspect. Okay, I'm not all of this. I am all of this, right? That's all it is. One is concentrating on you are not this. One is saying you are this, right? What is left over when you are in the non-dual state? That's what you actually are. And so the Buddhists are very, very good at concentrating on nothingness, and they will actually go into, eventually, some of them, a small proportion, into a samadhi of nothingness. And they will go, and that will confirm everything that they've been talking about. Oh, it's all nothing. but they are still there to experience it, right? So it's not completely nothing, because then there would be nothing there to experience that nothingness, right? So what is it there that is experiencing that nothingness that they have? Well, it's consciousness. And that's what the yogi is talking about. Same thing. And Amber says, are the knots something you will continually experience even at higher levels of progress, or do they stop occurring at some point? They might dim considerably. I noticed that they were dimming a lot, and then I did an experiment, and I would go into my deepest state but put my mind on the body a little bit at the same time, so I was kind of fluctuating, and all of a sudden they all came back, right? But as you deepen and you put your mind more and more purely on expansiveness, they will dim out more and more. So you'll go, or you might have, hands hot and heavy, lips tingle, dorsal vagal, the four proofs, the skin tingles. You might have all of that, and then you go into the freeze more and more, and it dims away, right? So all of those will dim away, but they won't necessarily go away completely. So you can have them again, and it's like, oh, okay, this is the part of the roller coaster when I go through this.
I assume it's kind of just like a process of getting to a meditative state, that those things you experience on some level.
Yes, yeah. So they may happen quicker, faster, shorter, and you'll go into a deeper and deeper state. Greg?
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. And now we're over, and you guys are heroes sticking here. Jake, oh my goodness. This is should I always focus on the medulla for every practice? Yes. But you don't have to stay there. So you can Om into the lower chakras, come up, Om into the higher chakras, Om into the medulla. You don't have to stay there. Then you can Om back down. So you want to touch it in the program, but you don't have to necessarily stay there. But you can just hang out and stay there. But it doesn't have to be all the time. Kriya is definitely medulla-centric, which will be my primary focus. Excellent. Hatha pranayamas and heart meditations. Oh, you were asking about, should I put my mind on the medulla or the heart? Both are good. So, if you want to hang out with the heart, that's totally fine. And it's a very deep practice. And that will help lift us up out of the lower concerns, right? The lower three chakras, which are security, food, ambitions, all of our ambitions in our life, all of that. We rise up above that momentarily when we rest in the heart. Not that those are bad, but we come above them and all the worries that come with those momentarily. And Eros asked, what is your position on playing external music, nature sounds for meditation? I think once in a while is okay, but I like, of course, just the pure silence. And eventually you'll notice that is actually leads to a deeper experience. But every once in a while, you want to play a little music to help inspire you? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Madhuri, you asked, can we share with us some of your practices? I think I did. So I think I already covered that. So I hope that was good. And Keith says, is there an easy way to tell if we haven't cleaned out our chakras? Yeah, and this creates, when you check and you're like, I'm not sure if my chakra is clean, and then you feel something in it and you Om into it and that comes out or it releases, now you're creating that relationship. And that relationship is so key. It is allowing us to have a biofeedback. When you actually check and you feel something, if you can, you feel something and then you Om into it and it dissipates, it gives us the experience that the Om japa is actually working, and it's a biofeedback. It'll make it much more powerful. So absolutely. But sometimes yogis will tell me that my chakras started to disappear. And so some of that is the freeze response, and some of that is that the sensation will become so clean. Like I scrubbed it, I scrubbed it, I scrubbed it with the Om Japa, it will become so clean it begins to disappear. So that's how you know. Great, fantastic question, Keith. And we went over, and my daughter's peeking out, giving me the look. So I should probably finish. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on your weekend. I love it. Beautiful questions. You guys are beautiful, fantastic, and big hugs to all of you. Stay safe in this big storm. If you're in the United States, it's free. That's why I have my jacket. It's freezing. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Oh my goodness. Linda, Zach.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Look at all these hearts. You guys are beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. 20 Celsius here. Oh my goodness. That's freezing.
20 Celsius below there,
Yeah.
it's like 85 degrees where I am.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, my sister got snow in Portland. So it's a big storm all across.
Thank you.
Joshua, de nada. Gracias por todo.
Thank you, Forrest. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.